Hey everyone, thanks for taking the time to listen in this afternoon. My name is Sam Shapiro, and I am currently a program manager working on the Xbox game streaming team, specifically focused on creating great customer experiences with cloud optimized titles. Over the past few months, we have made some incredible progress with Xbox game streaming, and I am excited to spend some time discussing why it is worthwhile to optimize your game for cloud streaming. To start out, let's paint a bit of a picture of what the playing field looks like from a customer perspective. There are approximately 4 billion internet users on the planet, and of that population, approximately half are engaging in what we consider to be gaming in some capacity. What we traditionally think of as console gamers only makes up about 200 million of that addressable market. So the main question here is, what do we need to do to capture that new audience of 1.8 billion users? Traditional console gaming doesn't fit everyone's lifestyle. Similarly, there are many regions in the world where console gaming has never taken off in a serious way. This is in some part a cultural phenomenon, but also a result of the barrier to entry of traditional console gaming. Breaking down this barrier to entry and ease of access is what Xbox game streaming is all about. Our promise to customers is to allow them to play the games you want with the people you want on the devices you want. To do this, there are three main pillars of the Xbox game streaming strategy. The first pillar is content. Xbox has an incredibly compelling and diverse content library. And time again, our customers have shown us how much they enjoy the content offerings that exist. We want to leverage this content and make it newly accessible for those who have not experienced it. Similarly, we want to make it easier to access for those customers who know and love it. The next main pillar is community. There's the global Xbox community, but also a title-by-title community that engages with the game online, in forums, and in many different ways already. We want to take this existing community and give them more ways to access their titles, as well as provide a rich and fulfilling community for new players. And lastly, the main pillar that provides the power of this entire vision is the cloud. By leveraging the Azure cloud, we can serve content to customers on a breadth of devices with near zero latency to customers in existing Xbox markets, as well as new or emerging. If you think about the progression of gaming, the move to the cloud shouldn't come as a surprise, as it continues the natural progression of the evolution of gaming. From arcade-style games to traditional home consoles and PCs, the industry has continued to make gaming more accessible and more immersive, and really natural for consumers. However, the next generation of gamers that we're seeing today are engaging in different ways than the generation before. They want content to be available right when they want it, and they want to access that content from anywhere. Mobile gaming is the fastest growing gaming field right now, in large part due to the ease of access. This next generation of gamers want to use native glass controls on mobile devices and expect titles played through these form factors to come with these controls available as a first-class experience. So let's talk a bit about some of the tooling that we on the Xbox team are developing, which will enable you to create mobile-first experiences with your existing titles. As we thought about how to take the Xbox controller and bring that experience to a new form factor, the biggest challenge we had to overcome was the sheer number of buttons on the Xbox controller. There are 18 distinct inputs that needed to be supported in many combinations of buttons that needed to be pressed concurrently and individually with both the thumbs and the fingers. So this is what it looks like with all 18 inputs mapped onto a single pane of glass. And when I say glass there, I refer to the screen of the mobile device. As you can imagine, it's fairly difficult to navigate this many buttons while trying to play a game. But more importantly, it detracts in a lot of ways from the gameplay by covering up important screen real estate. This is a great starting point as it leverages the same ergonomic foundations as the Xbox controller. You can see the highlighted gray areas on each side that represent the most comfortable places for your thumbs to be while playing. However, not every game requires every control to be available at all times. And oftentimes, the best way to create a compelling experience is to add some level of customization. Here are a few examples of what is possible from a customization perspective. These are examples built by the Xbox team to highlight what controls might be possible for contextually different titles. For a 2D platformer game, the main inputs would be actions represented by the icons on the right, as well as movement represented by the joystick on the left. For a driving title, we've built out a steering wheel input that maps closely to the joystick on the controller. There are also a gas pedal and a brake in an attempt to provide a more intuitive input mechanism for someone who may not be familiar with the standard Xbox inputs for a title. For a fighting style game, the button inputs can be represented as their respective actions to provide a simpler input experience, more reminiscent of a standard mobile input mechanism. And for adventure and first-person titles, we provide the two joysticks through their functional forms. All of these examples are fully customizable for a specific title, and these customizations just scratch the surface on what is possible for touch layouts. When you work with the Touch Adaptation Kit to build glass controls for your game, it is very likely that you may want to make multiple different control layouts. Let's think about a first-person shooter as an example. For most of the game, you want to be using a layout optimized for playing a first-person shooter. However, when the player jumps into a vehicle, a different layout optimized for driving will provide a better experience. You might even want to use a third set of controls if a player, say, jumps into the back of a vehicle to use a weapon. How do you make this work? First, you'd use the Touch Adaptation Kit to build all of the different sets of glass control layouts that your game needs. Then you upload them to the Xbox Game Streaming Service. After you've done this, anytime the Xbox Game Streaming applications launch your game, it will contact the service and automatically download these layouts. Now, all that you need to do is update your game to tell the app which one of these layouts is most appropriate for the current state of your game. This can be as straightforward as adding one line of code in your engine when it changes between different game states. Similarly, if you're showing a cutscene or if you have built-in touch-enabled menus, you might want to remove the touch-adapted glass controls altogether. Well, good news, we've got an API to do exactly this. You simply ask the streaming app to hide the current set of controls until your game has transitioned to a state where it's appropriate to put them back up on the screen. Another great feature that we've built out to make games more compelling on a breadth of devices is the ability to modify the game UI to be most usable based on the device it's rendering on. The example here is an in-game menu. In the larger screen on the left, you can see the game knows that it's running on a large screen and provides the desired experience based on the screen size. And on the right, the game knows it's on a smaller screen and renders the more appropriate experience that gives the right level of usability. This sort of enhancement makes this title a first-class mobile experience. So now that we've shown you what is possible and the tool sets we've been building out, let's talk a little bit more about how this looks in our current product. So over the past 2 years, Xbox Game Streaming has significantly scaled out our capabilities, our offerings, and reached new gamers in new markets. This all started with a public preview in October of 2019, a regional expansion in January of 2020, and finally, our general availability launch in September of 2020. Since then, we've continued to expand to new regions, including Mexico, Brazil, Australia, and Japan. In the general availability launch with Game Pass Ultimate in September of 2020, cloud-optimized titles were a huge focal point for the press beats and the marketing of the product. This was a unique feature to titles on Xbox game streaming on Game Pass, and we wanted to ensure that customers had visibility into the touch experiences that was possible with these titles. To date, there are over 40 touch-enabled titles in the Xbox game streaming catalog, with additional titles being added on a monthly basis. The list here is a subset of the total titles we have in our catalog. This represents approximately 20% of the available titles on Game Pass Ultimate for cloud. These touch-enabled titles are highlighted in the application via special badging to ensure that subscribers know which games they can play without a controller. So now, let's take a look at a specific example of a title that has been customized for touch input. Let's dig a bit deeper into what you just saw in that video. Minecraft Dungeons created a first-class experience for touch with their title by combining two different aspects of the touch input toolset. For the touch adaptation overlay, they took the button inputs and combined that with custom assets tailored to the UI of their title. Similarly, they optimized the input experience based on the context of the title, providing an experience that shadowed the Xbox input mechanism while feeling distinctly custom. The next feature that the team leveraged was native touch. This input mechanism was used for situations where the gamer instinctively touches the screen to select an option or navigate a menu. The pairing of these two input modalities provides a truly seamless experience that makes the title feel as though it was developed to run natively on the mobile device. This optimization was an incredibly efficient way for Mojang to bring Minecraft Dungeons to a new form factor while maintaining brand quality and customer experience. Minecraft Dungeons also integrated with the ergonomic controls that are provided out of the box with the touch input toolset. This enables customization of the controls based on what feels best. Every single different player has a different style of input, and every single hand fits slightly differently on every different device. We want to make sure that we provide gamers with the ability to customize their controls based on what feels best for them. So we've talked about how touch optimizations have shown up for a consumer. Now let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about a story of how a title was optimized for the cloud and how easy it is for the developer. New Super Lucky's Tale was a title that Xbox worked directly with Playful Studios on bringing to Xbox game streaming with custom touch controls. For those who haven't played, New Super Lucky's Tale is a fairly straightforward platformer title. To begin the cloud optimization process, we started by taking our standard overlay and stripping away all of the controls that weren't relevant for the title. This included the bumpers as well as the left trigger, ultimately simplifying the possible inputs for the user. The input was then play tested to ensure a quality experience. Playful created custom assets to make the controls feel as though they were part of the experience and mapped to the UI of the title itself. All of this happened within about 2 weeks, and the result was a fully functional mobile port of an Xbox title with almost no work. As Paul Bettner, the founder and CEO of Playful, said much more elegantly than I could, bringing new Super Lucky's Tale to xCloud Touch wasn't just easy, it was delightful, involving little more than running the game and discovering how fun and intuitive it is to play on a phone. It's just one of the many innovations Microsoft is bringing to gaming right now, and we couldn't be more thrilled with the opportunity it gives us to share Lucky with even more players. Broadly speaking, thus far, we've seen some really interesting data come back as it pertains to consumer behavior with the usage of touch titles through the Game Pass Android application. The product is still very much in its infancy stages, and we're continuing to refine our data streams, our metrics, and continuing to dig into the interesting trends that we're seeing with their consumer behavior. I'm going to highlight a few of them for you guys here. So the first impact that we're seeing from cloud optimization is discoverability. Within the Xbox game streaming experience, titles that have been cloud optimized are highlighted and stick out in the catalog amongst the additional 200 available titles. Similarly, we are seeing engagement from users who have a history on console but are picking up a cloud optimized title for the first time on Xbox game streaming. Consumers are being introduced to these titles for the first time through the cloud. The next thing we're seeing is an enablement of new ways to play. Cloud optimized titles, specifically those with touch controls, are letting users play titles in a situation where they might not have had a controller before. This is creating a more immersive experience for the consumers, where they can start a title on their console, pick it up when they're out of the house, and then continue to play when they get back at the end of the day. Along these same lines, we're seeing a general increase in playtime for consumers who are playing with Xbox game streaming. We aren't seeing any decrease in console usage. Instead, we're seeing that given the increased availability of gaming, gamers are engaging with content at times when they were previously unable, increasing their net playtime. The last insight that we're seeing aligns closely with the new ways to play insight, and it's that sessions via game streaming are typically shorter than those on console. If you think about the barrier to entry of console gaming versus cloud gameplay, it starts to make sense that we would see users jump in and out of a title more frequently and play for less time, as the situation in which they might engage with that title is a bit more casual and based on easy access to the content itself. In addition to large amounts of data that we're analyzing, we're also receiving lots of customer feedback through in-app mechanisms as well as via survey to our user base. From a positive sentiment perspective, we're seeing a strong desire for more titles with touch controls. Users are loving the ease of access and want to see touch controls scaled out more broadly. Similarly, consumers are enjoying the customization of the controls, both from an image perspective as well as from the perspective of simplifying the input experience by only showing the relevant controls at the correct time. In terms of improvement areas, we're seeing consumers express frustration with both the screen coverage of the controls as well as the lack of customization that is possible for some control sets. In terms of neutral sentiments, we see the scaling of touch support for situations in which a controller is inaccessible. After aggregating and aligning across all of our various listening systems for Xbox game streaming, we can break out customer requests into 3 areas. The first thing customers are saying is specific to cloud optimization, readability. We are seeing a high instance of engagement with titles that may not have been optimized for the cloud, with users having a sub-average experience relative to console given the lack of usability. Small menus that have not been customized or in-game text prompts that are too small to read create an unpleasant experience, especially on smaller screen mobile devices. This is difficult for players who have played the title on console and know the context behind a small menu. But this is even more problematic for someone who's picking up this title for the first time and having their first experience be impacted by the readability. The next area that we continue to hear feedback from users on is an increase to touch availability on titles. Our users are loving the touch titles that are available in the catalog, and they want more titles to adopt the controls and be available to play in non-controller scenarios. And finally, the last thing we are hearing across the board is that our users want more content. They want to play the titles they love on the devices they want when they want to. If you are interested in working with Xbox to make any of these requests a reality for your title, please reach out to your Microsoft representative. So at this point, we've talked about what we've seen so far, but the momentum for these trends is just getting started, and we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of what is possible from the impact of cloud optimizations. It's impossible to talk about the future of Xbox game streaming without acknowledging the foundational aspects of cloud streaming. Xbox game streaming is built on the Azure backbone. Azure is currently available in 54 regions and is continuing to expand rapidly. As Azure availability scales, so too will the availability of Xbox game streaming. More concretely, our program is available in some capacity in general availability in all of North America, the majority of Europe, and we're continuing to expand and are currently in beta in Brazil, Mexico, Australia, and Japan, with many more countries coming up on the roadmap. What's important to note about this image is not how much of the landmass is colored in some variety of green, but how much is gray. There's a huge amount of regions and countries where Xbox game streaming has yet to enter. And with each new country comes a new set of customers to delight with game streaming. When we talk about market expansion, we need to think about mobile first and non-Xbox markets. These are the regions where console-centric gaming isn't prolific. Gamers are used to consuming content on their mobile devices. And as a developer, the task of taking a console game and creating a mobile port is no small feat. Xbox game streaming gives you the ability to take your title that you have built and refined and tested and modify it with a few lines of code to create a beautiful and complete mobile version of your title. These mobile first and non-Xbox users won't think of the cloud optimized title as anything other than the way they first experience it, a first-class mobile experience that runs just as well natively on a mobile device as it does on a 60-inch TV from a console. And this cloud optimization is what it is all about. It's not cloud-specific development. It's just optimization. You build the games the way you know how, the way you have always built them, for console. And along the way, you keep in mind that some things may be optimized for different form factors. This won't change how your game runs on a console. It simply opens up your title to work on a multitude of devices with significantly lower cost than creating a per-device port. This opens up opportunities for gamers to play where they want, when they want, and have a beautiful experience. It also gives the next generation of gamers something to latch onto. This quote that we received from a customer is exactly the vision we are working to accomplish. On-screen controls for certain games is a great new feature. Feels less like I'm staring at a really small TV and more like I'm playing a really good-looking mobile game. That is what it is all about. Taking your Xbox game and making it a first-class experience on mobile or any other additional endpoint for that matter. Soon enough, we will live in a world where gaming isn't defined by a box and a controller. The next generation of gamers has already shown a strong inclination towards glass controls and mobile form factors, and this is what they are coming to expect in a title. There will be more and more gamers who will experience console-native games from a cloud environment, and cloud optimization is the way to ensure that these gamers are having the experience that they deserve, and the content is being shown in a way that it deserves to be shown. It is very possible that in the next few years, any of these gamers may experience your title for the first time via a mobile form factor. They will only know that title as a mobile-first game and will have a set of expectations aligned with that thinking. We need to meet our customers where they are. As the landscape of gaming is shifting, we need to shift along with it. On the Xbox game streaming side, we are continuing to invest in tool sets to bring native experiences to end users regardless of the endpoint they are connecting to the cloud from. Hopefully today, I've been able to show you why we believe that cloud optimization is worth investing in. Today, we talked through what tools are available to create mobile-first input experiences, as well as tailor existing experiences for the device that a gamer is playing on. I'd like to leave you with a couple of thoughts on the platform we're building and the impacts of cloud optimization. Cloud optimization enables you to take your existing games and leverage the power of Xbox game streaming to reach new markets and new users all over the world. Xbox game streaming is continuing to scale out to more users all over the world, and we want to take your content with us on this journey. Cloud optimization enables you to take your titles and run them as first-class experiences across a broad swath of devices. Our current offering supports Android devices, but we have many more endpoints on the way, and we want your titles to play as beautifully on our upcoming endpoints as they do on our existing ones. A full port of a game to a new endpoint is expensive and often compromises the quality of a title. Let Xbox game streaming do the work for you by leveraging the cloud optimization toolset that we have available. And finally, empowering your players to play where they want, when they want. We have already seen overwhelming data to support gamers playing more sessions at more times during the day. And we believe that this will be a fundamental shift in user behavior with respect to gaming. The customer is dreaming of playing the content they want, when they want, on the device they want. And cloud optimization with Xbox game streaming is the way to make that dream a reality. The future of gaming won't be defined by a gaming console and a controller. And it's time to start making the investment to give our customers what they truly deserve. Thank you.